session. Felt like we could have just kept going, and so much good stuff to talk about. The customer panel is something where we've got all of you, we've got these great folks up here with their knowledge and experience with the Adept solution. And so we want to just get conversation going with them. I've got a list of questions that I want to, I'll certainly kick off with and get the conversation going, hear from these folks, and then, but we want to hear from you guys as well. If there's things you'd love to hear from this panel, please, we'll have a time when we can just get you to raise your hand. We'll come over with a mic, get a question, and then we'll hear from at least some of these folks with each of the questions. So that's the goal. Anything on your mind that you'd love to hear more from other customers, now's the time. Okay, so our panelists, you've met many of them. Along the bottom there, Randy, Jessica, and Ryan have already presented. And then we've got Corey Tanner from Great River Energy with us. Don Adams, who presented here last year from Lucite International. Keith from Chromolux, and Chris Kaufman as well from Buckeye Partners. So this is the panel that we've got with us. Phenomenal group of Adept customers, and thank you guys for being willing to come up in the spotlight here and just get barraged with questions. We appreciate it. Please welcome them. So I want to start with just asking the folks who haven't already presented to all of you and shared their story to introduce themselves briefly in just a few minutes. So we'll start off with Great River Energy. And sure. Are you mic'd? You're mic'd?
Yep.
Yep, good.
Do you want me to come up there?
I can flip for you if you want.
Okay. You can go ahead. I'm Corey Tanner.
Yeah, Corey, why don't you come on? Okay. You can just right there.
Okay. I'm Corey Tanner. I'm from Great River Energy, and we're out of Maple Grove, Minnesota. One of the first things I saw here that was cool was the purple lighting. That made me feel at home with the Vikings. I know we got a couple Packer fans out here. I've talked to them. It's Packer Week in Minnesota, so it's a big deal. A little bit about our company. We've been around since 1950. We were two different companies that merged in 1998, so we have a long history of documentation. So we do, let's see here. I myself design power lines, but we're called a GNT, so that's generation and transmission providers. We have 28 co-ops that we represent in the state of Minnesota. And I think 426 power lines. So we got Adept in 2009 to get a drawing management document system. Partly for security of our documents and partly to be more efficient in how we store our documents and operate our CAD files. So we have about 900 employees. Close to 300 of our users are Adept Explorer users. About 50 of us have Adept Client, and about 100 of us are AutoCAD users. So it's engineers, engineering technicians, surveying, power plant technicians, and workers. And then recently we started using some consultants are using our Adept system. So in about 2010 is when I really got involved with Adept. Started out as the work group administrator, and we were having a tough time separating data because it always worked before Adept to use one title block, but we really felt the need to get more data out for searching and separating and searching on custom data. So I really worked for 2 years at our company trying to get our own title block and going to this drop-down method. So this is kind of what our library card looks like now, and it's all a drop-down system. I was able to get our new title block, and it has 120 attributes that are all restricted field drop-downs that tie into our asset system. We use Maximo, so that houses all of our asset records. So I was able to export that data right to this, so it was consistent. So it's consistent for the users on searching, consistent on putting in data. The other thing is I got to reach out to all these employees over the years and ask them what they liked, didn't like, what they wanted to see. So I got all that historical data in here. All of our engineers, drafters over the years, so it's all already in these drop downs. So I started out designing our attributes and came up with a nomenclature for that. So this is kind of showing that even from specific things as our structure heights or structure numbers, I was able to put that in an Excel sheet and bring that over. One of the toughest things I did was I put in required fields, and that was not popular at first. So I'd say a year. A lot of the older guys and stuff weren't too happy with me, and but you know, after a little while, they started seeing the results and how good this turned out and how well our stuff was getting organized, and they were able to find anything they were looking for. And it kind of went back to this file structure. So I was able to build that through file guides. So everything we do now is based on file guide. And so we've built our file retention policy into that. We have a retired section, manufacturer drawings, and it drops down like that, and it's easy to find. And the cool thing now is other divisions are starting to copy this same sort of method that we used. So that's pretty pleasing to see, and it's pleasing to see new engineers coming in and picking this up in a day, because it's pretty easy to find what they're looking for. So really glad to be here. I appreciate it, and looking for any recommendations that anybody has. I'm always tinkering with this, so.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, let's bring up Keith from Chromalox.
My name is Keith Cameron. I've worked for Chromalox for 26 years. I work in engineering. Most of my career, I have been the CAD developer for AutoCAD Electrical, and in recent years, Inventor. I'm in charge of all our CAD system, our configurators that feed our CAD systems. I do Adept and publish wave support. Kind of a funny note that shows my age. My first job out of college, my supervisor handed me a 3-ring binder of a program they just called AutoCAD that I'd never heard of, and he told me I had to figure out how to customize it. I've been doing that since. Also, I want to note I'm from Wisconsin. That's why we're not sitting next to each other. A little bit about my company. We're a world leader of advanced thermal technologies, including heat trace segment, industrial heaters, system component technologies. We have facilities across the world: US, Canada, France, India, Mexico, China, United Kingdom. And that fact right there is why we went to Adept in 2014. We're in our 100th year. The founder, E.L. Wiegand, patented the metal sheath electric heating element in 1915. We have just tons of applications, military, we've had heaters on the moon, on the space shuttle, even freeze protection in porta potties. I mean, we're just all over the place. That's not one that we brag about. My presentation is kind of on how we integrated PublishWave into our CAD automation. We do tons and tons of CAD automation. We don't use AutoCAD Inventor, AutoCAD Electrical out of the box. That's my full-time job, is to reduce steps for engineering and simplify things. I thought when I was going to speak today, I'd be the first one talking about PublishWave. I think everybody's heard PublishWave about 100 times since yesterday. So, what you see here is it's a one of the CAD configurators that I created. Does anybody here use AutoCAD Electrical? If you have, it's really outdated. The schematic part works really well, but they haven't really integrated it into AutoCAD into Inventor yet. So we decided to do that ourselves. So that configurator screen right there feeds that model and creates that IDW automatically. And then the engineer can just push a button in his menu, it goes to PublishWave, and then the drawing goes to Adept. It's pretty straightforward. That's one of the more complicated projects I've worked on. But we did some stuff when we got PublishWave. When I saw PublishWave the first time, I thought, here's a step that we can just get a bang for the buck real easily. So I set up some menu choices for all of our engineers, despite what product they have. It just says send to Adept, takes the drawing, creates a P2A file, goes to our PublishWave server. The engineer just gets back to work. We do also have a web-based configurator that I don't have a screenshot for, but our Salesforce application engineering and engineers can configure a project, hit submit, do nothing else, and 10 minutes later the drawing's in Adept. So the drawings, nobody goes into AutoCAD or Inventor or anything like that. So that's really kind of it. If you have any questions on PublishWave, like creating P2A files, what's in them, how to set it up, feel free to ask.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Mr. Don Adams. Welcome back.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name's Don Adams. I'm from Lucite International. We have, just introduced myself a little bit here. I've been with Lucite for about 5 years. I'm the network, or not the network, but the manufacturing system coordinator for the Americas region. So currently we have Adept in 2 different plants, our Beaumont, Texas plant and our Memphis, Tennessee plant. So we use one database to manage both. So we're not near as extensive as Dow. But we do have Dow on our Beaumont plant. I am the Adept administrator for the entire region. I do have local administrators at each plant so that when I'm out in meetings with other stuff like being here, I've got folks to be able to handle both sites and take care of any needs. We're currently implementing Maximo, or a CMMS EAM system, so I'll be the administrator for that system as well. So we're going to be integrating all of that together. So it's very exciting to see the integration tools that's coming out, the new things that's coming out with the features in Adept. So before Adept, we managed our documents through Windows Explorer, shared directories, and home databases, and we just simply outgrew that. We were adding custom metadata. It was just really difficult and nearly impossible with you couldn't do it with Windows Explorer. You had to put it in a directory, as most of you already have experienced yourself. The file cleanup was difficult and actually very nervous for me, because when you move it out of one folder, you move it somewhere else, then somebody can't find it. And their solution for that was to create a duplicate, so it created a lot more problems. So we implemented Adept after, well, let me say that correctly, after vetting different software and seeing what best suited our needs. And Adept was by far what met the needs, exactly what we needed to do. So we implemented in March of 2016, and in June of this year, we upgraded to Adept 2017 Service Pack 2, and we immediately realized that, you know, when Service Pack 3 came out, we needed to go ahead and upgrade to that. We did a custom program, which Charlie Smith mentioned yesterday, which is automatic document review notification. Super excited about that. So, and then the way that we manage the two different sites in one database is that we created two separate library cards. We have some site-specific fields on each card that are specific to either our Memphis plant or to our Beaumont plant. So it's a little bit like running two databases in one system. We are working to eliminate those site-specific fields so that we can go to a single library card and make this a lot easier. We started with 172,000 files. We are currently up to 260,000 files. So Adept is working. It's very easy to clean data, and we're very excited about it.
Thank you, Don.
He's coming unglued here.
He's got me putting me back together. I thought the lights would keep me from seeing y'all and getting nervous.
And Chris, Buckeye Partners.
I'm Chris Kaufman. I work for Buckeye Partners, better known in this area as Buckeye Pipeline. If you're from this area, if you go over to Macungie, you'll see one of our facilities. Basically, we are an owner-operator of storage facilities and pipeline. We have over 6,000 miles of pipeline in the United States and over 120 facilities for storage. And at those storage facilities, we can store about 115 million barrels of oil, gasoline, any refined petroleum product. I've been with Buckeye about 6 years. Buckeye has used Adept or worked with Synergis since it's been NFM, so we've had it quite a long time. And we're very happy with it. But we weren't actually tapping into its full potential. It's more or less glorified file cabinet, as it said earlier. We had 3 folders for drawings, and that was it. No workflows, no version control, really. It was opened up to everybody. We only have 10 desktop licenses and a few desktop users. We have more desktop licenses than we have users right now. The majority of our users are web client users. It was more for viewing files, and they would copy files out too. We had them let them have the ability to copy files out, which was some of our challenges. We're a little bit unique, probably to most of the companies in here. We don't have an engineering department in-house to do any design work. We have an engineering department that creates our specifications and our standards that we pass out to engineering service providers who do the work for us. So what we use Adept for is to maintain our drawings and pass them out to external people. So we don't have internal users that use the documents, external users use the documents. So that makes us a little bit unique, and that was some of the challenges I'll talk about. File lockdown. Anyone could copy the files out. So within Buckeye, we'd have a project manager out in the West District, say in Chicago, and he wanted to look at a flow diagram or P&ID, he could copy that file out. And if he had AutoCAD, he could make changes to it and then print it, give it to a construction company, and away we go. And then we would not get that file back into our system if he didn't return it to us. So we didn't really have a control there. And you think, well, we make him check it out. that could work as well. But we weren't always getting the drawings back in a timely fashion. So, and then also in using engineering service providers, we would hand out drawings to them, and sometimes 2 or 3 engineering service providers would be working at the same facility. So if they're all working on the same drawings, you know, the last one in would end up being the most current, but it might not be the most current drawing. So that was another challenge for us. So how we rectified that, as far as file lockdown, we didn't let anybody copy out drawings anymore or check out drawings. They had to go through the centralized, we are an engineering group. They'd have to come in and put in a request, and we would create a transmittal and give them the drawing. And we had some form of tracking of who had the drawing. That worked well for internal customers. External service providers, how do we do that? How do we track what drawings we send to them? All right, so we created transmittal, but they're not an Adept user, so they didn't have an Adept login, so we couldn't really assign it to them. So what we did is we created more or less like a dummy account, say company A, company B, company C, and then we would assign them to that transmittal so that we can track it. And then as far as getting the drawings back, we started putting in Excel files. At our company, we use authorization for expenditure forms. And on that form, project manager, when he's asking for money, has to check a box that says whether it's going to have new drawings or revised drawings. So if that box gets checked, and we put that in Adept on the library or the data card, we extract that information out that says, yes, it's going to have drawings. So we match that Excel file up to the transmittal, and then we can see, you know, what needs drawings, when the drawings need to come back. Another challenge we had was drawing numbers. When I first started there, what we'd do for a drawing number, the company would say, we need drawing numbers. We'd say, okay, start with flow diagram number 10, site plan number 20, schematic number 50. And then it would just number from there. The problem we had is company B would come in and say, okay, we need drawing numbers for the same facility. We didn't know how many company A was doing versus company B. So what we were doing now, along with the transmittals, is we were using the new document feature with the drawing number generator. And we would sign those drawings into a library, and they would serve as placeholders. It'd just be a blank file, but they were a placeholder so that when the company sent the drawings back, we would sign them in, take those placeholders out, and if company B came along, needed numbers, we knew exactly how many numbers we gave out. We didn't end up with duplicate numbers. We had some speed problems with our satellite locations, so we went with replication. Our company headquarters is in Houston. It used to be in Pennsylvania, but over the years, the energy headquarters is in Houston, so that moved there. And we still have a very large presence here in Pennsylvania, and the engineering drawing database was here, but we had users in Houston that were experiencing slow speeds over our network. So we went with replication to solve that. And then one of the other challenges we had, web client usage. I mentioned that the majority of our users are web client users. The prior versions of Adept, Explorer, we experienced some speed issues. We came up here to Synergis in Quakertown, had our management there, and they showed us a 2017 demo and said, you know, with the speed of the web client would be increased. We were sold, we bought it, and it works great. We have increased, I'd probably say about 40 to 50% increase in web client usage from since we went to Adept 2017.
Awesome. Super, thank you, Chris. All right, well, thank you guys so much for sharing a little bit about your story with Adept, all of you have been able to share that. So I'm gonna try and keep things moving. So as you think about your answers, we'll try to keep them thorough but concise at the same time. So just keep that in mind. We want to try to get to as many people as we can. And again, we're gonna want questions from you folks, so hopefully you've got some queued up for me. I'll start off with our first one. Considering everything, what would you say has been most critical to your success with Adept? What one factor has been most critical to the success of Adept? Why don't we start here?
Find our documents very easily.
Finding the documents. What was most critical to you guys being successful with Adept?
It really is my answer. Before we went to Adept,
Yeah,
we had homegrown document management systems throughout the company.
okay,
And you never knew if you had the correct document.
okay.
So,
So that's the biggest benefit maybe that you're getting from
Yeah,
Adept.
yeah.
What thing did you have to do or your organization have to do to help Adept be successful at Chromalox?
at our company, it was really engineering driven, from the vice president down.
Okay,
Engineering implemented it with a little help from IT,
okay,
but it was totally engineering driven. And the engineer, once we got it, the engineer saw the benefit of it. Everybody saw the benefit of it, so there was a little pushback, but
Okay.
not much.
okay. Anybody else have something they want to share? Yeah?
Yeah, I really think implementation went well. It was maybe a year or so afterwards, we got our process really fine-tuned and developed, so it was working together, what kind of data, how do we want to see it, and really building those processes and procedures
Okay.
internally, and then, getting that out to everybody. So that was so important.
Okay, great, thank you. Randy?
I think for us, one of the biggest successes is the Synergis company. I mean, you're the right size company for us. You're very responsive. We're able to show management where if there's an issue, you guys listen to us, and not just in a superficial way, but in a very real way, and you respond to us. And you're large enough that you have mature work processes. Your development stream is mature. Your sales stream is mature. Help desk is very mature. And so it's really been a great fit for us, and we appreciate it.
Awesome, thank you for sharing that. Excellent. And one more? Go ahead, Don.
One of the major success criteria for us was that we had a lot of opportunity with our naming structure of our files that caused issues not only in Windows, but with Adept after we got started. Just like he said, the help desk was hugely critical and instrumental in helping us be successful, because Myra and Glenda and John and Paul, they were phenomenal, very responsive and very thorough
Okay.
in helping us get through it. So without that, I mean, we wouldn't have been able to get past those little hiccups that we had in the very beginning.
Okay, okay, super. Why don't we just make sure we get to everybody for this question. This is a juicy one. Ryan, go ahead.
To kind of tag off of these two guys, you guys really were kind of the cornerstone in us being successful. Our application consultant really made sure that when we were going through the planning phase, that we hit everything that we needed to hit, so that when we turn the key, we let everybody know that once we start, we can't go backwards. If you're in, you're in. You can't be managing stuff in two spots. So our pre-planning phase, to make sure that all of those boxes that we want checked were checked. That's what really made it. At game day, everything went smooth and as it was supposed to.
Okay, great. And we'll jump over to Chris and wrap up with Jessica.
Yeah, one of our biggest successes with Adept is the version control. Being a pipeline company, there's certain sets of drawings that we're mandated to maintain for inspection purposes with the government. Pipelines are regulated by Department of Transportation. So if we don't have the most current and up-to-date drawings, we can get fined. And it's not necessarily a per instance fine. It actually goes up incrementally every fine that you get, whether it's at facility A, facility B, facility C. So if you get fined one here, the next one's higher, the next one's higher.
Okay.
So we were having a lot of trouble with our version control, with companies going out and then working with the help desk team and understanding the version control, having the ability to go back and look at older versions. Because I said in my thing earlier that we might have 3 companies working at the same site and they all come in together. It's blending those together, being able to go back and look at versions.
Okay, great.
Big success.
Jessica.
I think something that was absolutely critical for us prior to the implementation phase was having all of our management internally on board. The unified drive to have Adept work allowed us to really curtail any existing procedures and processes that we had to meet Adept's needs, and everyone was really flexible and everyone was really excited about it. I think that that was something that allowed us to really implement smoothly.
Wonderful. So definitely some common threads there we're hearing from really everybody. So great. Thank you, guys. Next question. What was the greatest obstacle to your success with Adept? And then how did you overcome it? Jessica.
Jose, I can do that one because we had a big challenge. So I mentioned previously to some of you that most of our subcontracted effort is working with our engineers currently. So we've got a lot of off-site users that are not able to use the desktop client. Originally, when we started implementing Adept, we had the intention to have every user on the desktop client. And we wanted to set up VPN tunnels between all of our subcontracted companies to our server to be able to have that happen. And we ran into a lot of issues with the information security specialists from the different companies, a lot of red tape, and expected timelines of 6 months for some companies to be able to establish a VPN tunnel like that. And with all of that pushback, we realized that it was a potential that we would never be able to have that kind of connection. And really, we were putting ourselves in a position where we couldn't bring on a new subcontractor and then have that risk of having another 6 months before we could get them online. So we had to find a workaround, and without the check-in and check-out feature in 2017's web client for Adept, we decided to utilize the assign to function. And through the processes that we have in place and the training we've done, we have everyone treating and respecting the assign to function as the checked out function. So if something is assigned to a person, then you can't modify the document. You need to contact them the same way as if it was checked out. Though the permissions do allow you to modify them, we just respect the process, and it's worked. And then we still have the upload functions available for the web client users, and we had to set aside about a full resource to be able to migrate that data into Adept and check it in. But it's really worked a lot better than I had expected, because I was nervous whenever we ran into that wall.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Wonderful. Yeah, Corey.
Ours was kind of working with people who had been there a long time, because before Adept, the whole integrity of someone finding a file was built into the nomenclature of the file name. And we kind of went away from that. And instead of 20 engineers looking for documents, we opened it up to the entire company. So it was a new way of thinking. And that's kind of, we had to go out and talk to people and reach out to them and really see what kind of search methods we want to use. That's kind of why we went to the whole drop-down thing, because it was for everybody in the company now going to be searching on these documents. So,
Randy?
Maybe just to kind of build on what he had talked about. You know, technically the program itself was well received, but the people change aspect of it is always tough. You know, the people that have done something a certain way for a really long time, it's hard to make that transition to something new. And so we had a couple of cases where the folks just said, look, this isn't going to work. You know, it's bad because of this, and it's not going to work because of this. And there were some other folks that maybe were bruised from previous implementations of different products that they felt abandoned or not supported. So we made sure that those vocal folks that were passionate about pro or con, we put them on our team. We said, okay, I hear what you're saying. Tell us why you think it's not going to work. How would you do it if you could design it? And at the end, not only were they proponents, but they were owners then. They owned the system, and they were evangelists for what we're doing.
Nice.
And so I think managing the people change is important.
Okay, great. And one more? Greatest obstacle? Yeah, right.
We, because we have a system that was really built in literal paper, you know, writing bombs on paper, our structures were so that the part number doesn't match the drawing number, doesn't match the program number, doesn't match the final product number that, you know, all these assemblies go into. So we had a really difficult time because so many people were doing things so many different ways. How do we take all this stuff and put it together and be able to find it after? So we, our application consultant worked with us for our file structure on how to kind of intelligently populate some of that information ahead of time so that then we can link it into the ERP and have it automatically pull the rest of the information and put it all together.
Okay, nice. Thank you all for sharing. How about a question from the crowd? Does anybody have one queued up for us? We do. Mr. Gasper.
Yeah,
This should be good.
this is going to make you think a little bit, and it plays off of what Jessica said right there on using the assign and a conversation I had with Corey yesterday. And this is there any feature in Adept that you rely on and your users are using, but you're using it in a way that it's not intended to be used?
I'd say, for me as an administrator, using the batch update to get past restricted fields. I'm the only one who can do it, so I guess it's kind of cheating. So I use that quite a bit. I don't know if it's intended that way, but.
These are also known as tips and tricks.
Yeah.
To kind of make the system really better.
What I did notice is we're on 15, Adept 15. So in this version, when we upgraded to that, some of the users who I work with who could do that before don't have that ability now. So that created kind of a roadblock. So that's one thing we use that works well.
Anybody else have one for Joe? Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
We use the move command. If engineering makes a change to a part, the CNC operator needs to know when he goes and searches for the program, he needs to know if that's changed so that when he loads it in, he's not going to run, an older version of whatever part it is. So we take those parts after engineering does it. He takes the setup sheet and the program file and moves it into a different library. We just call it change programs. So when the operator's looking, he pulls up the programs. Oh, it's in change programs. I can look at it and do my updates, put it back in, and then I move it back into the programs folder.
Keith, you had one.
Yeah, we use full text search a lot. Just recently, an engineering manager said our UL notes are going to change on our drawings. So he gave me the old notes, and I did a text search of part of it. It found 2,000 some drawings, and I checked them out, wrote a list file. And in an hour or so, they're all updated and signed them back in. So you can be a little bit creative with it and updating drawings.
Okay, great. Another question from the audience. Where do we got one? Great.
Chris, my name is Bill. This may be directed to you, or it may involve everyone in the panel. Our organization is similar to yours, where we have several manufacturing facilities, and all of our engineering is outsourced. We just manage projects internally. So Adept primarily for us is a huge repository for all that information in and out. One of our biggest challenges is, number one, to influence our outside engineering companies to use our drawing number standards so we can track that in and out. And for the most part, that is successful. Our big challenge is equipment manufacturers who will have nothing to do with that, or European companies that don't want to get involved to that level of detail. As a result, we receive many thousands of PDF files with their drawing information on it. And many times they will reissue that with changes without any necessary changes to the file name itself. The file names may be text and descriptions, it may be series of characters and numbers, and not everything is set up to have metadata that we can pull. So there's a manual process involved. If you have that problem, how have you dealt with that?
We do have that issue from time to time. We're not getting thousands of files in PDF format, but we do purchase some major equipment from other places, and they obviously won't give us the CAD files for that, so we get the PDFs. What we do is we insert that into one of our Buckeye borders and give it a Buckeye drawing number, and it's usually a mechanical reference or an electrical reference number. And we have a field within that title block for another drawing number or serial number or product number, and that gets extracted to the data card. So in that case, you know, it doesn't necessarily work because we do it by, we do our drawing numbers by location. So if the same piece of equipment is going in at a different location, it would get a different drawing number, even though it's the same piece of equipment. And then I guess how we would handle if it would come back and it would be revised, we would search on that product number and it would come up, and then we could, you know, update our revision block to indicate that it's a newer version.
I think we do something similar. We have, for vendor documents that we get back or supplier documents that are CAD files, we just have an attributed block that they add to it that's extractable to Adept. So it turns those unintelligent documents that we can't read into something that we can index. And we carry two fields. We carry the original document number and drawing number, and then the DAO document number that adheres to our standard. So it's searchable in the DAO format, but if you're looking at some reference copy that references the vendor's drawing number, you can still find it using that method too. So it sounds very similar.
Ours is similar too, that we kind of went through this whole business improvement process a couple years ago, trying to manage vendor documents. And you get 1,000 different vendors, and it's really tough to manage all of them, so you want them to comply with what you're doing. So what we did is we just added a couple fields in Adept that weren't tied to the drawing, tied to the location, and then built a reference number system based off that. So it's building the process to bring those in, but you're not specifically going to map every one of their title blocks or their documents, but it still keeps track of them.
Great. Yep, thank you. Go ahead.
Morning, I work for a medium-sized public utility. Wondering if any of you have any GIS implementations. We are headed into an Esri implementation here, and wondering if any of you have any sort of GIS system that you use, and if so, just maybe a little bit about the integration, if you have an integration built with it.
We have ArcGIS, and we're starting, actually right now, we're going to put all of our soil borings from Adept into ArcGIS. So we're working on that right now. Also, we use Maximo a lot, so we're linking the asset drawings that are in Adept to all of those asset sites, which are tied to GIS too. So that's been working well for about a year or two, but right there with you with the soil borings and different stuff like that. So maybe we can share ideas.
Anyone else?
We're going through a similar process. We haven't gotten that far yet. We use ArcGIS as well. And we're looking to link our site drawings to ArcGIS. So if we can all get together.
Great, thank you. Do we have another one? Another question? Okay. All right, I'll throw one out there. So, are you collaborating across global sites or with external contractors, vendors, or customers? And if you are, tell us about the nature of your collaboration. So first, just a quick show of hands. Who's collaborating outside of a single site, and who's collaborating with external contractors? Okay. All right. Randy, you want to take us there?
Sure. Well, you saw in the presentation earlier the global nature of Dow's network. So collaborating between our major engineering centers is a primary function of our day-to-day work. And so Adept file system replication, of course, is part of that. But having one global system where regardless of where the engineering center is, you can share work is really cost-effective for us. And it's an enabler for work share across time zones, so projects can be done quicker. Okay. And we do have some communication with external companies. And I mentioned we have an extranet site set up, but we're not using it, but we're using Dropbox for that type of communication and transmittals.
Okay. All right. Anyone else want to share something about your kind of enterprise collaboration or external collaboration?
Yeah, we work with over 100 different engineering service providers, and As far as getting the information to them, we use an extranet site, we use transmittals and a zip function, put them up on the extranet site. But if we would be collaborating internally, like with our Houston office, and we're looking to do replication in the Bahamas and St. Lucia and Puerto Rico as well. We need that ability. Recently with the hurricanes that went through that area, we didn't have access to any of their drawings, so we want to do some collaboration there. We're developing some workflows as far as when they're doing drawings, that it goes through workflow and our engineering people can actually see the drawings. Right now they just store everything on site, which doesn't really work for us.
Okay. Looking for a question out in the audience. Here we go.
Now, does any of you use collaboration in terms of with the external contractors? And would they have access to sort of look at red lines that you internally made on your drawings or on your documents, and then have them either make the changes and then feed that back in or check out your documents?
We started, so we have some consultants that have limited access to Adept to sign out drawings and do the work and then sign them back in. That's been going really well. We maybe started that a year ago. So we pretty much have a administrator who monitors when they check in, check out stuff, and we haven't really done anything with marking up drawings or anything. It's just kind of the as-built drawings come back and put them in.
I was going to say for our capital project system that we had talked about earlier, the supplier document control work process is our ordering equipment, getting the design spec, and having a review process 10 or 12 times until it's right. We leverage Adept's redlining capabilities for that, and so we kick off an Adept work process that goes out for the review team, and then for the MST owner, our purchase order owner, reconciles all those redline changes into a format Dow wants to present. And then the administrators take the redline copy of the drawing in Adept and create a PDF with those red lines embedded in the PDF. And we package that up with a transmittal and send it out to the supplier. They make the corrections and send it back. And so that cycle continues until there's a final sign-off. But it leverages the redlining and the transmittal process in Adept.
Do we have another question out in the audience? All right. I'll throw another one out there. What's your vision of Adept 5 years from now? What's Adept going to be doing for you, for your business 5 years from now?
I'm really hoping our next step is to start beginning drawings out of Adept. Starting with that template, I think that's where at GRE, that's where we're ready to go. Hopefully, the other half of our company sounds like it's going to start following what we've been practicing. So, and then possibly get into more document management sort of stuff. I'm hoping for.
What do you mean more document management stuff?
Right now, everything's pretty much based off of Oracle. I don't know if we're going to specifically keep Oracle as our document server, so I'll probably go back to work and talk a bit about that. Because right now we're totally set up with Adept the way we want to go in engineering, so
Okay, great.
Some good things.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, Jessica.
I've talked before that we are currently using it on just one isolated program within our corporation. So I really hope that we can expand corporately and we can have it working where we've got Adept document management for all of the drawings for every individual project, and also for the corporate data management side, which is integrating potentially with our purchasing and estimating departments and our accounting department, and working not just on construction drawings, but also on the corporate side as well. And that expansion, if we could do that in 5 years, I mean, that'd be great.
Nice, okay. Go ahead, Don.
Currently, we're managing mostly engineering documents, but we have a mix of records, PSM, SHE documents, and photographs, and so on and so forth for our equipment. In 5 years, I mean, I'm looking for perfection, but it's always going to be an ongoing battle. But we are looking to bring in other departments and other things so that we're managing not just our documents, but our records, and having everything, the versioning correct, like was mentioned already, so that, and then having the ability to be able to rearrange, slice and dice the data every which way that every department can do, which is already capable in Adept, but just being there with our data cleanup.
Okay, awesome. That's a great vision. Yeah, Randy.
Yeah, in the next 5 years, I'd like to see Adept as the cornerstone of our business work processes for our capital space. We'd like to push into the purchasing area where we're collecting bid documents and letting POs and running through that cycle, capturing the project startup and the project closeout. Where expediting can understand what documents are still required and not received yet. And be able to close some of these loops and become more of a cornerstone of what we do.
Okay, great. Nice, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Keith.
I think what I'm going to say mirrors about what everybody here has said. I mentioned our implementation is engineering driven. I would like to see quality now get on board, get some of their quality documents, work instructions, and just other departments get on board. I'd definitely like to see that within 5 years.
Great. Love it. Anyone else? Okay. Do we have another question from the crowd? Yeah. Bill?
I have a follow-up to your question to the panel. You're really looking way ahead, long-term. What may be interesting is, can you adapt at least the search function of the Adept product to use an audio interface, like Siri or something? Think about it. You have, all right, because engineering, I'm an engineer too. We have a lot of data, but I find that in many companies, sales has the power to drive money, costs, and development. And if they're out there with web clients and iPads, things like that, they can go into an app and say, customer Siemens, job number this, schematics, everything pops up for them. Things of that nature could be an interesting concept out there. I'm not saying in the next year or two, but the world is evolving into some of those platforms. It may not be for a lot of the document management use internally, but in terms of an interface, it may be an interesting concept. Just a thought.
That sounds like a great
Great
feature
thought.
request for Joe.
Joe, you got that on your notepad, Joe?
It's interesting. I heard that Google in the last 12 months has increased their API for voice recognition and speech to text to speech more in the last 12 months than they have since the inception of their work so far. So it's almost seamless these days. So it's reasonable to start seeing interfaces that leverage that type of technology. It's kind of funny, just one anecdote. Years ago we tried to implement voice with AutoCAD. And there was one guy that would incessantly walk around, quit yes. You hear somebody, ah! Yeah, we turned it off.
Another question. Synergis folks, this is your opportunity as well. Feel free to dive in. No? Okay.
We had a couple people talk about GIS. Is there more folks looking at GIS?
More folks interested in integration with ESRI, GIS system? Yeah? Okay. All right. All right. Next question. From the time you implemented Adept to now, what was most important to gaining user adoption? Some of you addressed that in your presentations. Maybe for the folks who haven't yet shared that information, what was most important to really getting users to adopt the system and embrace it? Don.
Kind of a funny question, and I get a kick out of it, just when people ask me this. But I have engineers, admin assistants, I have managers come and ask me, well, what if I don't know what I'm looking for? And I kind of a smart aleck. I usually answer with, well, you're not going to find it. But with Adept, it gave me the, after I thought about it and really kind of thought through what they were asking, they just simply wanted to be able to browse the directory and look at the files to see if it was, you know, what they, if it had the title for something that, you know, what they were trying to do as far as a reference document or supporting document. So as I thought about it, I created favorites for our documents, and for a plant, a manufacturing plant such as ours, the piping and instrumentation diagram is the Bible. So I started with the P&IDs, and I created favorites for all the different areas on the plant. And then with the P&ID, I created relationships, every piece of equipment on that P&ID, and then all the files that were related to that piece of equipment. So when somebody goes to the favorite, finds their P&ID for the area that they want, they don't have to know what they're searching for. They can just follow the relationship tree down and find the document they're looking for.
Yep.
And that's been huge.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know it's been a tremendous amount of work for you, but I know Don's going deep to try to make things easier for his user community, so I'm sure they're appreciating it. Anyone else want to share that?
I expand on it. We have a lot, like I said, we have a lot of web client users, and it was a little painful for them. Number one, because when they go into a site, well, we had it set up before, and they would search drawings in a site, they could get 2,000 drawings. You know, and they don't really want to filter through that. So it was a lot of training through that. But what we also did too is we created some more folders with archive files where drawings, they're legacy, we need them, but they're not really anything that they're going to use for any of their day-to-day jobs. And then we restricted them from that. So that kind of closed down their search results to a more manageable level. And then I think also it's training with your users to get them to buy in. You know, if they're not understanding it, they're going to go like, it doesn't work, I don't like it, I'm not going to use it. And then if somebody else is talking about it, they're going to say, oh, well, I never use that because it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So you got to get those people, train them, and turn them into your advocate rather than your adversary. And then, you know, if it works well for them, then they'll be a champion for you. And like, oh, why don't you go to Adept? You know, you don't need to go to Chris or Carl or Jason to find the drawings. You know, just go right here and you can find them yourself.
I've heard that so many times here at the conference, both from presenters as well as just in the hallway, people talking about it. That seems to be working. So, quick check. We've got a question. Nick, is that you? All the way back there? Nick Bogart with Synergis.
Hey, so thinking back to your implementation, is there something that you or we, as the implementation team, could have done better?
Could have brought donuts.
He didn't bring donuts?
Oh, they did? Oh, wow. Let's talk to Jeffrey. Jeffrey came out several times to our site to help us get kick-started, and we spent a week or so on a whiteboard, A, laying out our design, and B, training us and giving us an assurity that we kind of knew what we were doing at the end of the week. And so we felt very well taken care of during that time.
We did too. We had Jeffrey, and Jeffrey was great. Got to know him pretty well, so he did very well.
Yeah, we were Jeff too. It was
Lots of Jeffrey
everybody
Newton.
knows Jeff.
Jeffrey
We were
Newton
like
fans in the
40% work, 60% messing around. So.
Yeah, we had Jeffrey too.
I didn't. I had Nick.
Okay.
He did not bring donuts.
All right.
Actually, I had Nick.
Yeah, Nick as well.
Actually, I had Nick, but you know, I will, thinking back on our implementation, there were some things that I wish we would have been able to do, but it really points out the relationship that we had with Synergis, the things that were recommended, and it, again, hindsight's 20/20, but it really reflects on doing your homework ahead of time, because Synergis can only do so much. It really requires a lot of homework on our part to do, and there were some things that I wish I would have done better, or that our team would have done better in the implementation.
Okay. That's definitely true. And you're not going to think of everything ahead of time. You're going to think that you thought of everything, but once you finally turn the key to the on position, there's stuff that you're going to realize you didn't think of. So
Jessica, go ahead.
Something that I wish that we had done, and I don't know if everyone else has done, I'm curious to find out. We did the implementation on site in a conference room and all the discussions on site, and I was pulled back into my real job, regular job. This is not a fake job. So I was pulled back into my day-to-day responsibilities constantly. And I think it was just, everyone's trying to be respectful of the fact that you're in a meeting, you've got something going on, but it was a whole week. So I think that if I had kind of just removed myself from the equation and gone off-site, even it's something within our city, but just off-site to maybe a hotel or something with a whiteboard and done the entire implementation uninterrupted, that is something that I wish I really would have done. And Nick can speak for this because he would sit in the conference room like, well, I'm just going to work on this stuff because Jess has been gone for 6 hours. And I don't think that the rest of my company respected the fact that we were trying to do something that really demanded my full attention. Did anybody else have that problem?
Oh yeah, we had the same exact problem.
Yeah, so if you guys could just steal us and then during the implementation phase take us somewhere off-site as like recommended as part of your policy, that would be great because then my boss would have said, oh, this is something that it's required, you have to go off-site. All right, we could make that work. Or even one of our different facilities. We have different facilities in the same city. So if we had done it at one of the ones that no one knows me at, then.
Yeah.
It's a common issue, so I think it's something we can think about and how can we make that better?
Early on when you start putting these things together, there's not a lot of structure. So you have a lot of things floating, waiting to be tied down. And you really have to focus your full attention for hours and hours. If you leave the room for 5 minutes, a lot of those things are gone. You have to restart. So yeah, I see value in that.
I did ours off-site with 5 virtual machines in my home, and I had a couch in that room.
He did it right.
That's what I did all week,
Okay,
and nobody bothered me, so.
yeah,
it worked
That sounds
really
great.
well.
sounds like a good move.
Jess wants to come over to your house.
One more from Nick. I knew we'd get Nick going sooner or later.
So would you ever, for the new customers or prospective clients that may be in the room, would you ever recommend shortening the amount of time for implementation to save money?
No.
No, not at all.
No, I want to extend it.
Take your time, think through it.
Doing right.
I would say leverage Synergis too as much as you can for prior to implementation. We have them do our upgrades and our migrations too. We just leverage them because they're doing this stuff all the time. You're doing it once or twice.
Yeah, one good thing would have been, if in the future, if Synergis has similar companies that have like another utility, they can get in touch with us and, we can offer some suggestions we went through. And, I think that would really help having that contact.
Yeah,
It's a
absolutely.
great idea. Yeah, nice.
And
You know, it's
early on in the design process,
It's really important. It's really important to have everything nailed down so you don't spend your time with the application engineer arguing amongst yourselves. So doing the homework ahead of time really helps.
early in the design process, mistakes are cheap. 2 years down the road, design decisions that were mistakes are problems.
Kind of tied into Nick's questions, I want to turn part of that question back to Synergist, if I may. People are individuals. The development specialists come out there, they have their own ideas to help a particular company and guide them through a process. Does Synergist have anything internally where all those different specialists come together and share what they've done between different companies to expand what one person may be able to offer to us in lieu of another? Because sometimes I don't always work with the same individuals. I'd be curious to know that.
All right, get you some feedback on that. Mark Mahovich, our Vice President of Services.
Thanks, Scott. That's a really interesting question, a good question. The applications consultants, which is like Nick and Eric, the guys that are on site doing the implementations, I mean, there's a lot of interaction, I would say, between the implementation specialists, the help desk folks, when issues come up and so forth. you know, they have a system in place where the applications consultants can log requests or things that they find out while they're out on site. You know, like if there was an opportunity for something in the product to be a little bit better or different, that could help them while they're out on site. So we do track that information. So, you know, we are doing what you're asking, I believe, to some degree, but I also think it's an opportunity for us as well. You know, the collaboration internally and so forth, I don't believe can ever be as good as it can possibly be, right? There's always room for improvement there. So I think the interactions between, you know, development, say, and our guys that are out on site doing this work, I always think there's opportunities for that to be improved. So hopefully I'm answering your question. If not, please let me know.
Summit?
Yeah, Summit. Yeah, so thanks, Chris. So earlier this year, and this is something that I want to do on an annual basis, is I created what we call our annual services summit. Because we have all these guys that are out on site, you know, they're remote, except for one of the applications engineers, everybody's remote. They live in other parts of the country, right? So what I did was I wanted to bring everybody in. We did it, brought everybody in for a week. I invited the help desk team, our application consultants here, as well as the other application consultants on the other half of our business, which is the reseller for Autodesk, right? So that side, our engineering design solutions. And we brought everybody together for a week, and I planned out, I can't remember, I think there was about 25 sessions throughout that week. And it was just an internal learning. You know, we set up sessions. We actually had development present part of that. I remember Joe. I had invited Joe in and Charlie and so forth, and these guys just presented on what's going on with the product. It was just an opportunity for collaboration, an opportunity for learning, and, you know, bringing the teams together, because everybody, you know, you guys know, they kind of get in their box, so to speak, you know, doing their job day to day and so forth. So it was just an opportunity to bring everybody and break it up and just share, you know, what's going on. And from what I heard, that was a great event from everybody, and it's something that I will continue to do from year to year. So, and I think it's, again, going back to my first point, I think it's an opportunity to get development involved a little bit more and get them exposed a little bit more to what these guys are running into on site and so forth. So I think that's an opportunity too. Yeah, thank you, Chris, for reminding me of that. Great, awesome, all right.
Thank you, Mark. And we are, what's that? Yeah, we've got like 3 questions. Go ahead.
All right. I'd just like to ask the panel and everybody in the audience, we have such a wonderful community sense of togetherness here in this room. What are your recommendations for continuing to keep this dialogue open between each of you? What is the best way that we could, you know, help you keep in touch with each other?
I think some sort of a forum.
I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah.
There's the Facebook group. It sounds like it's kind of stagnant, but
Other feedback from the panel? Sounds like forum from everybody is what I'm hearing.
User group. I mean, like, if, you know, AutoCAD has user groups, and, you know, like
Yep.
you know, Adept user group.
Okay. Any other feedback from our customer base on that? Okay.
Scott, our Canadian clients, I have a lot of Canadian clients, and they all asked if we could please try to do this enclave next year so it doesn't compete with their Thanksgiving. So
Good,
from our client
good
base,
feedback.
Our Canadian clients had asked
Sure.
me to at least voice that.
That's great input.
Jeff.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we are a little bit over, so I think there's time for one more question. We've got it over here. All right, we'll do 2. We'll do both of you guys.
Quick question, you know, kind of coming back around to the collaboration you guys spoke about, and to the audience too. I've had a lot of requests from procurement, who are day in, day out, sending out packages for quote. We're a product design company, so we're always quoting parts of different vendors and stuff. And so they've asked, is there a way we can do a vendor portal where I can just send a link to somebody outside to that drawing or something like that, or PDF or whatever, then they can just grab it, so I'm not spending all my time grabbing it out of Adept, putting it in an email, sending it out. Is anybody doing anything like that? I know collaboration's a little bit like that, but I don't know if there's anything else out there.
I've got something going on like that. We actually have what we call a vendor portal, and we have a separate username and password established for one individual, and we share that username and password with all of our vendors, and we can exchange data from there in like a Dropbox fashion, but it still allows us to keep that data that we're exchanging managed internally in Adept. So the people who are farming it out aren't having to go between different things and take it out in an email and stuff. They'll just email the person directly and say that the documents are available in the portal. We can talk more. Yeah.
Okay, great. And we had one more. I'll just make a quick comment. You'll hear more on collaboration portal a little bit later today.
So I'm going to throw the question to the panel, and my company is in a phase where we are trying to adopt the Adept software, and I just wanted to ask, is there any thing that you guys can advise us based on what we can prepare for towards implementation? Like internally, we're trying to like map out what we think our data card should look like. Is there any advice you have that you can share with us, how you prepared for your implementation so you can have a smooth one? And the recommendation, I think that'll be to Synergis, would be if you guys can just like come up with some type of document that you can give to prospective customers saying, okay, this is what you can do as a homework, an assignment, what you can do to prepare towards implementation.
Well, I guess I can say that at least in the beginning, focusing on who your target audience is and where your security needs are, how you're going to segregate your documents. Even now, after a number of years of having Adept, six or seven, we have a really high bar for creating new libraries and a really high bar for creating new attributes. And so those things are formally documented with a basis of why we made those decisions to add or not. And so any change has to be measured against that. But starting out, I think it's really critical to go in with the mindset that you want to support your customers, of course, but you want to make sure that you don't implement your Windows file share structure in Adept, because that's what people are used to. So don't be afraid to challenge the old concepts.
One more comment from anybody up on the panel, or?
I think you were talking about sending out homework, if you will, to try and get your team to give you the information so you can strengthen your case before you get into implementation. So I would say if you start asking people, you talked about the data card and what it's going to look like, reach out and figure out what kinds of metadata that they feel like they're going to want to query on. And then when you start aligning all of the different requirements that every department has, you can find the ones that are consistent throughout all of them. For instance, like document type or file name, those are things that we have across every department. But then additionally, we also have whether the document's controlled or not, and SWPS codes and stuff. We have different fields that everyone wanted. We prioritize those to be on that first tab of the data card. And then from there, we did specialized tabs for every different department that was unique. And I think giving them that as homework, and then also, like Randy said, talking about permissions, requesting that they tell you anything that's going to be limited distribution to your company, so you can start curtailing that as well before you get in.
All right, great. Well, we are just past time, so please join me in thanking all of these fine folks. Thank you guys so much for joining us up there.